Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled A Detailed Account of the Torah of Yahushua Messiah, Part 1. Understanding the spiritual evolution within the order of the Torah and how we become a finished product in Yahushua Messiah. The podcast objectives are reveal how the additions Yahushua made to the Torah did not change the Torah, reveal the primary requirement for receiving the set apart spirit of Elohim, reveal the source of every sin ever committed in the history of our world, and reveal the core substance of the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. Welcome. Now, before we begin today's lesson, I would like to welcome all my beloved brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah who have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, who Yahuwah has joined to this ministry for such a time as this. I would also like to welcome anyone who is engaging our podcasts or videos for the first time. We trust you were led by the set apart spirit in finding us. And if you continue to be led, we hope you stay with us. For these are troubling times, and an evil day is just ahead. To this end, if you are watching this video on YouTube and you have not subscribed to our channel, click the subscribe button below, and you will be alerted whenever we post new videos. Also, if you have any questions at the conclusion of this video, you can ask them using the link in the podcast description below the video player. Last but not least, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube can share it with believers like us. The spiritual evolution of the Torah. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome back to our Word from a Watchman series. In our most recent lesson, we came to see how Israel became a spiritual nation, to wit, a renewed nation established upon the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. Not only this, but we also came to see how the renewed nation of Israel includes men and women from every nation on the earth. If you recall, this was a primary topic in the series I taught on the sealing of the set apart ones. That said, if you have not engaged those podcasts, I advise you to do so as you have the time. For your reference, these podcasts were posted between January 1st, 2024 and June 28th, 2024. Now, amongst other things, my series on the sealing of the set apart ones reveals that the Torah of Yahushua Messiah is the foundation of the renewed nation of Israel. It is our belief system, for it empowers us to fulfill all the requirements upon the seal of Elohim. Now, as you have learned, this is in line with the Torah of Moshe. For, as it is written, Yahushua Messiah is the completion of the Torah. Ergo, the Torah of Moshe is the starting point, and the Torah of Yahushua Messiah is the finished product. And thus, the only controversy within the order of the Torah lies within men and women who refuse to become a finished product in Yahushua Messiah by guarding his Torah. And after all this time, you should know why. To wit, the dogs, goats, and swine within the dying nation of Israel are habitual transgressors who don't want to stop sinning. This is why they resist the Torah of Yahushua Messiah, for his Torah is the Torah of freedom. To wit, his Torah, unlike the Torah of Moshe, frees us from sin, which is why his Torah is the only Torah that can produce a finished product in the Ruach of Elohim. The following revelation reveals why, and I have told you this before. The Torah of Moshe exposes sin at the detailed level, but it does not teach you how to eliminate sin at the detailed level. Likewise, apart from the spirit of the law, the Torah of Moshe does not have the power to provide permanent atonement for sins. Now, here again, this is why Yahushua was ordained by Elohim to complete the Torah. As I say, he added critical analysis to the critical concepts of the Torah to reveal A, why we sin, and B, the path we must follow to overcome sin and, in effect, stop sinning. This is why we see Yahushua taking occasion by the authority given to him by Elohim to add to the Torah of Moshe. And yet, in adding to the Torah, he did not change or destroy the Torah. You can see this by observing the image to the right. To wit, the Torah of Yahushua Messiah is connected to the Torah of Moshe via the spirit of the law, which is driven by the set apart spirit of Elohim. Therefore, the additions Yahushua made to the Torah did not change the Torah. Quite the contrary, his additions were a spiritual evolution of the Torah, which was required to facilitate our transition into a spiritual nation. This is why it is crucial that you understand the spirit of the law, for as it is the driving force of the Torah, it connects every line and precept, ensuring the Torah is aligned with the divine order of Elohim. Now, that said, it is impossible to understand the Torah if you don't have the set apart spirit. This is why the false Hebrews have been deceived into believing the additions Yahushua made to the Torah somehow changed the Torah. It is because they do not have the set apart spirit. Ergo, they have been infected with ignorance and deception. Ergo, they cannot possibly understand the model of spiritual evolution, for it requires his spirit. And yet, we can. Ergo, now that we have established the Torah of Yahushua Messiah as the completion of the Torah of Moshe, we must execute an in-depth analysis of the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. For if you fail to follow his Torah, you will never obtain the seal of Elohim, and you will never be elected into the renewed nation of Israel. Not only this, but without his Torah, we will never achieve the unity of the faith. And thus, a detailed analysis of his Torah is the next step in our quest for unity, i.e., project unity. Remember, there can be no unity where men and women are not aligned on their core values and their core beliefs. And seeing as we all value the seal of Elohim, we must continue to align on the beliefs we must possess to obtain his seal. Let's get started. The only Torah that has the power to transform. Now, first things first, we should revisit the scriptural evidence that proves Yahushua Messiah was given authority to add critical analyses to the Torah of Moshe. I will commence with Exhibit A, which we analyze in the most recent podcast in this series. Isaiah 42, 1 through 4 is revealing. See, my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one, my being has delighted in. I have put my spirit upon him. He brings forth right ruling to the nations. He brings forth right ruling in accordance with truth. He shall not fail, nor become discouraged, till he establishes right ruling in the earth, and the coastlands wait for his Torah. Now, as you know, Torah quite simply means instruction. And as it is written, the nations were waiting to be instructed by Yahushua Messiah. For his Torah is the only Torah that has the power to establish right ruling in all the earth. And we will witness this miracle of righteousness, peace, and goodwill toward man during the millennial kingdom, a time when all nations will be instructed by the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. Now, this brings us to Exhibit B. To wit, the Torah of Yahushua Messiah is designed to illuminate the Torah of Moshe. For the Torah was constantly distorted and twisted to suit the degenerate needs of the former nation. For look, listen, it has been written, I am the light, illuminating Yahuwah's Torah, so men see it more clearly. For many are the devious roads followed by the hypocrites. Look here. This is why Yahushua was given authority to add critical analysis to the Torah. It is for two primary reasons. A, so honest men and women could see the Torah more clearly. And B, so false Hebrews in times past and in times present would be exposed as hypocrites who circumvent the Torah because the fear of Elohim is not in them. Not only this, but in establishing the Torah, Yahushua has provided a baseline of judgment for the renewed nation of Israel. For look, listen, it has been written, all these things I give you, that they may be established and added to the Torah, so that henceforth they be used in judgments among the just. Look again, my friends, and listen. Listen. If anyone loves me, he shall guard my word, and my Father shall love him, and we shall come to him and make our stay with him. If you love me, you shall guard my commands, and the Father shall give you another helper to stay with you forever, the Spirit of the truth, whom the world is unable to receive because it does not see him or know him. But you know him, for he stays with you and shall be in you. Now, there are many things I would like to say about this passage found in John 14. But Time is of the essence, my friends, always of the essence. Ergo, I will limit this short but decisive analysis to a factor of three. First and foremost, I have fulfilled my scriptural burden of proof by providing multiple witnesses that Yahushua Messiah was given authority to add critical analyses to the Torah by adhering to the spirit of the law. And now his Torah is the law. Now, point number two, John 14:23 confirms the diagram you see to the right. To wit, Yahushua is declaring, if anyone loves me, he shall guard my word, and my Father shall love him, and we shall come to him and make our stay with him. In effect, anyone who guards the Torah of Yahushua Messiah will become one with the divine order of Elohim, which is why they will abide in the love of Elohim and receive his presence. And if they continue in the Torah, he will stay with them. This brings me to point number three. And seeing as it is the most important point of all, I will offer it to you as a revelation. This is one I advise you to bookmark and to share as you are led. You cannot receive the set apart spirit of Elohim if you are not guarding the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. Now, if you read John 14 carefully, and if you have the set apart spirit, then you know this to be true. For the alternative would suggest that Yahuwah would invest his set apart spirit in someone who is unwilling to be set apart. Now, let me tell you something. This is one of many delusions being pushed by false Hebrews, which testifies to their spiritual insanity. To wit, they claim to be set apart, whilst they refuse to be set apart. And it all goes back to their refusal to follow the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. That's the key, my friends. To wit, we cannot be set apart if we are not following the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. And we can prove this matter by analyzing the Torah of Yahushua Messiah at the detailed level. In doing so, you will see how it is the only Torah that has the power to transform us into men and women who are set apart. Let's get to work. The source of every sin ever committed. Now, we should begin our detailed analysis of the Torah of Yahushua Messiah by analyzing the spiritual evolution that was enacted upon the Torah of Moshe. If you recall, there are two primary objectives the Torah of Yahushua Messiah achieves that the Torah of Moshe does not, for they are outside of its jurisdiction. In effect, these two objectives are outside of the scope of the Torah of Moshe. However, these two objectives are required for us to be freed from the eternal damnation of sin and lawlessness. And thus, these two objectives are the primary factors of the spiritual evolution enacted by the Torah of Yahushua Messiah. Praise Yah. Now, we have touched on the primary objective in our analysis of the Torah. To wit, the Torah of Yahushua Messiah addresses the procedural and the analytical models of sin. In effect, his Torah reveals why we sin and how we can stop sinning. Here again, we touched on this in times past, specifically in the case of adultery. But now it's time for us to see the big picture. My dear friends, it is time for us to see the conclusion of these matters. Now, I would like to direct you to the diagram to the right. As you know, this is an illustration of the 80 degrees of lawlessness. And for many days, I have referred to it as the mountain of lawlessness. And yet, there is so much more to this mountain than descending intervals, spiritual strongholds, and 80 unique degrees that we have analyzed for more than a year. And we could analyze for many more. My dear friends, within this mountain lies the key to understanding the purpose for the Torah of YHSWH Messiah. And so I will offer it to you as a revelation. This is one I advise you to bookmark and never forget. The mountain of lawlessness is the source of every sin ever committed in the history of our world. To wit, every sin ever committed can be traced back to one of these 80 degrees. Now, that said, you must appreciate how this illustration only contains the 20 primary degrees of lawlessness. And so we should execute a quick review of the 80 degrees of lawlessness. Feel free to pause the video as we do. And here are the 80 degrees of lawlessness: despair, noncompliance, dishonesty, amorality, disregard, misconception, insanity, imprudence, extremism, procrastination, agitation, displeasure, depression, anxiety, dissolution, immodesty, neglect, apathy, carelessness, and vanity, distrust, nonconformance, unrighteousness, irreverence, error, confusion, indecision, misjudgment, greed, idleness, impatience, division, disappointment, disturbance, estrangement, arrogance, cruelty, hostility, antipathy, and wrath, self-reliance, complacency, defilement, blasphemy, denial, delusion, incompetence, failure, iniquity, abdication, discouragement, distractions, disorder, control, discord, disservice, harm, condemnation, disloyalty, and rebellion, doubt, disobedience, contempt, prejudice, ignorance, deception, thoughtlessness, rejection, hedonism, limitations, discontentment, disillusionment, imbalance, distress, alienation, pride, detachment, hate, selfishness, and ego. The first level of spiritual evolution. Now, seeing as we have established the source of all our sins, the question of the hour is quite simply this: why doesn't the Torah of Moshe address the 80 degrees of lawlessness? My dear friends, if you actually read the Torah, you will not find too much on the 80 degrees of lawlessness. What is for certain is this: you will not find a detailed analysis by any stretch of the imagination. Why? The answer is sure, and we have already touched on it. Vis-a-vis, critical analysis is outside the scope of the Torah. Remember, the Torah of Moshe was designed to provide an exposition of sin to enforce the letter of the law. On the other hand, the Torah of YHSWH Messiah is designed to provide an exposition of lawlessness to enact the spirit of the law. This brings us to a treasure box that I am quite sure you have already realized, and yet I will state it formally for the record. By conducting this exposition of lawlessness, I have been teaching you the Torah of YHSWH Messiah for the past 18 months. There are many things to be said about this reality, and seeing as we are out of time, I will begin to touch on them next Friday as we continue our Word from a Watchman series. Until then, I encourage you to pray concerning these matters and conduct your own spiritual analysis. My dear friends, you don't have to take my word for it. The scriptures are at your disposal, and I encourage you to use them. To wit, read the Torah for yourself and see how often it addresses the 80 degrees of lawlessness and how often it reveals that lawlessness is the source of all our sins. For an example, consider how the Torah addresses the sin of adultery. Along these lines, we all know the command, thou shalt not commit adultery. But does the Torah of Moshe provide detailed analysis about the sin of adultery? And does it teach you how to overcome lust, i.e., the source of every sin of adultery? My dear friends, this is only the first level of the spiritual evolution that was enacted by the Torah of YHSWH Messiah. And everyone who has a sincere desire to overcome sin is following it. And I am very happy that many of you are here. Now, here is the final word. The only way we will see a national revolution is if we follow the path of spiritual evolution. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, the only thing keeping many under the curse of this captivity is their refusal to adhere to the spirit of the law. For he is the source of the Torah of freedom. And where there is freedom, there can be no curse. Here lies the problem. And I have said it many times. To wit, the majority in this nation don't have his spirit or his guidance. And for many delusional reasons, they are quite content without it. Ergo, when this curse follows them all the way to the judgment, they will have nothing to say about it. Heretofore, I recommend, open your eyes and see Yahuwah is turning back our captivity. And while many are keeping themselves under a curse, we, my dear friends, will inherit the earth. Hallelujah. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on today's lesson. And if you have any questions, please submit them using the form at pinnacleofholiness.com. And I will respond to you as soon as I can. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, a detailed account of the Torah of YHSWH Messiah, Part 1. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 551, The Spiritual Disease of Thoughtlessness, Part 1. I will post this podcast on Monday, December 22nd, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim, continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.